But first up, let me bring you the numbers, the projections for C voters. And before we do that, let us tell you what the methodology was. It's important to know this, especially because these are COVID times. So even for our pollsters, it's extremely tricky and challenging to get out there and get the pulse and then make these projections. The interviews were conducted amongst adults aged 18 plus. The sample spread was across all assembly segments with a margin error of about 3%, plus and minus 3%. The C voter used a proprietary algorithm to calculate the vote share. These are the details of the methodology, and of course the sampling was done across various dates from March 27 to April 29. The sample size actually varies from 5,003 to 85,000 plus. So, amidst a pandemic, we held an election. And what did the people have to say? Aarti is standing by with the first set of numbers coming in for West Bengal. What is the C voter projecting, Aarti?
Well, Tanvi, this is a number that everybody's been waiting for. Yes, there is, of course, is a pandemic, but there's also a little bit of excitement about the West Bengal numbers. Is it going to be Khela Hobe, Khela Sesh, and for whom? Well, the numbers tell you that the BJP has crossed the 100 mark, but not enough. They obviously had to do a little more, but as per the C voter projections, the TMC is going to get about 150 to 164, which means they're crossing the halfway mark. Definitely not close to what they would have wanted to, but as per the C voter projections, they are set to cross the halfway mark and form government. I should add as a rider, these are the initial projections. The BJP, I mean, to be fair to them, from 3 seats in 2016 to go up to 109 to 121. These are the C voter projections. Is a huge jump, but just not enough. I think they fell short in that final little push. That final little push was absent as per, of course, these initial projections from C voter. The left plus, which comprised the left, the ISF and the Congress, biggest loss for them. 14 to 25 seats have been projected. It was a complicated and it was a difficult alliance, so to speak, in many ways. And you can see from the numbers that didn't really work out. And others, 4 seats in 2016 and 0 projected now. But these are the C voter initial projections for West Bengal. Basis this, the big takeaways are the TMC is likely to be retaining power. The BJP has crossed the 100 mark, but just not enough. They had huge ambitions. They said that they were going to cross 200 seats, falling short of that. The left Congress and the ISF alliance, which was supposed to be the X factor, something that could be a spoiler, not quite creating the impact that they would have liked. But basis these numbers, the TMC said to retain power, but crossing the 100 mark, which remember the three mark figure was supposed to be the big hurdle. Somebody like a Prashant Kishore had even said if they reach 300, if they cross the 3-figure mark, then he will retire from politics. I don't know if that's going to happen, but basis these numbers, BJP is still falling short of crossing the halfway mark.
Well, this is one set of polls. Of course, Aarti will also be bringing us many more, Vinay, because, we like to give the complete picture to our viewers, and we will be collating several other projections and then see if there is a key common headline coming out of that. As far as the C voter is concerned, C voter seems to suggest that Mamata Banerjee will come back. But significant gains for the BJP, even vote share-wise from 10% in 2016 to about 39% projected this time.
Yes, I mean, look, let's put it this way. There is no question that the BJP's vote share would have risen. I don't think that comes as a surprise for anybody. But I also do believe that if these numbers were to turn out like this on May the 2nd, the BJP would be disappointed simply because they paid a very high-stake battle. It's basically a winner-takes-all battle that they were playing. This was a prestige fight, and the kind of resources and the manpower that they put in trying to win Bengal and to defeat Mamata was unprecedented, and especially more unprecedented because these were very dangerous times. I mean, virtually the entire cabinet, the Prime Minister himself, Mr. Amit Shah, Mr. Nadda, they campaigned like never before. So clearly, if this is what happens on the May of 2nd, then it is going to be disappointing for them. I think, you may well try and see the glass half full from that party's point of view and say, oh, they've made a lot of gain from 3 to 100. But I think that was expected. A lot of people possibly would have imagined that this would have been a lot closer. Some people even went to the extent of saying maybe BJP would probably pip Mamata. But remember, this is an exit poll, and I am again putting a caveat here that exit polls, especially in a pandemic, is a difficult thing to do. So let's wait, of course, for other polls to come out as well, and that will probably give us a better sense of what the trend and the pattern in the West Bengal election is.
Yes. So let me bring in our other panelists as well. And Mr. Nilanjan, I want to start off with you. It was an intense battle, extremely intense. Were you able to sense, a change in sentiment when we went from phase to phase? I mean, your reaction to the C voter projections that we are looking at?
I think, the projections seem to be as was expected, that the Trinamool Congress is able to form the government, but with a reduced majority. We really do not know whether it is going to be in the figure range that what C voter is predicting, or is it going to be slightly different. But it definitely says, that the Trinamool is coming back to power. We had kind of said that. The basic question of whether the BJP is going to cross the 100 mark or not, the question of Prashant Kishore saying that he is going to, stop doing what he has been doing for the past several years, is a matter of, we have to actually see. He already has a job lined up in Punjab, so is he going to send in his resignation on the 2nd of May, the moment BJP's tally crosses 100? We all have to see, but in any case, politics is full of famous words being taken back or being completely eaten up. But, suppose C voters' figures are the final figures. It is going to be a very fragile government. It is going to be a fragile government. It will leave more than a crack open for the BJP to try to push it constantly for the next 5 years. So in any case, I think, regardless of whether the BJP wins this elections electorally or not, politically they have, because the entire political discourse throughout the campaign period has been set on has been played within the framework set by the BJP. That's what we have to accept. We have to understand that what led Mamata Banerjee to chant the Chandi part when she launched her campaign in Nandigram. If we are able to answer that, we will get who is the political victor. Electoral victor, 2nd of May.
Electoral victor, 2nd of May. We're also going to bring more and more projections. But Mr. Javed Ansari, do you agree that this will perhaps also, even if the TMC comes back, it won't be as strong as it is? Or many would say that because she took on the BJP and she took them on at their game and she actually fought it on their turf, and if she emerges victorious, then it only makes her stronger.
Look, to my mind, the TMC and Mamata Banerjee have managed to dodge a bullet. Now, much will depend if these numbers, and like Vinay, I am also a very cautious person when it comes to numbers and predicting elections. So if, assuming that these numbers are true, this would mean that Mamata will not have a free run. The BJP will be a very disruptive opposition. They're going to make life pretty difficult for her. Much will also depend on the sagacity and wisdom of Mamata Banerjee, on how she conducts herself politically in power. Because look, the BJP is now a force to reckon with in Bengal. And there are many who believe that they are just one election away from capturing Bengal. They've already set the agenda. They've forced all the other political parties to act within the framework of the agenda that they've set. On your program, I had pointed out that Mamata Banerjee, the day the elections were held, she organized a yagna. And she made sure that the visuals of that were made available to the media, and it was telecast. So everybody is now very conscious of not doing anything which can be seen as offensive or which would in any way offend the Hindu sentiment. So BJP in that way has scored a political point. Mamata Banerjee and TMC live to fight another day. How they conduct themselves now, it will have to be a qualitatively very different government from the previous two. For one, she'll have to streamline. They cannot be, she'll have to keep her her nephew in check. She'll have to keep all the other cronies in check and ensure that not only does she run a very corrupt-free government, she's also very mindful of the fact that she's not seen as appeasing one section over the other, because the BJP has ensured that no matter that even the slightest deviation, and they will play that a particular card, which has proved to be their strong selling point across the country and also to a very large extent in Bengal.
Well, okay, I want to take it to the third set of parties, the left and the Congress, and essentially also talk about the left. Mr. T.S. Sudhir, contrary to what has been largely the sentiment of what may happen in Kerala, where the left may end up coming back, here it seems it's been completely now out of the game. How do you view the fact that left is now being reduced along with Congress and ISF to just about 14 to 25 seats?
Absolutely. In fact, most of the strength of the left in the previous assembly has gone over to the BJP, at least if these figures actually hold on the 2nd of May. And that is not going to be any consolation or good news for the left parties. Basically, it has become a party which is absolutely irrelevant now as far as West Bengal politics is concerned. And as far as the Congress is concerned, it will really need to get back to the drawing board and see what it can really do as far as Bengal politics is concerned. And the ISF, if these figures hold, would possibly come a cropper. Their entire Muslim vote, which it was really hoping to take away a bit of it from the Trinamool Congress, may not really have succeeded. Remember the fact that OWC did not contest too many seats. So this time, they do not even have the OWC excuse to give as far as any kind of result is concerned. But the other point about Mamata Banerjee, there is a lot of talk about if Mamata Banerjee manages to return to power in Bengal, she would be the most acceptable face for the post of Prime Minister as far as the opposition is concerned. But therein would lie a big risk. If these figures hold and she comes back to power with a much reduced majority, she would not really be able to leave Kolkata and Bengal and move over to national politics, move over to Delhi politics, because that would be playing with fire. So it's going to be a very difficult decision for Mamata Banerjee should she decide to move over to national politics with a much reduced majority as far as the Bengal Assembly is concerned.
In fact, reduced majority for Mamata Banerjee, but many believe, Mr. Deshratan Nigam, that they still believe that the BJP will get back. Are you in agreement with the projections we are looking at, or do you think something is amiss here?
Because, you rightly pointed out during pandemic, and especially in West Bengal, people were scared to tell the real preferences even in the exit polls. So there could be some kind of a catch out here, and people were not freely telling as to whom they have voted for, so far as exit polls are concerned. And I believe the numbers will be reversed. What projections which are being showed and what the ground reports that I am getting is that you interchange TMC and BJP, and that is the kind of result I am hoping, and that is what the ground reports are.
So, okay, that is one way of looking at it, and fair enough, we don't know in COVID pandemic times how these polls, to the extent of how accurate they may be and the atmosphere of fear. Mr. Ansari, I see your hand and I'll come to you in just a bit, but Vinay, to you first, because we've also, heard from many reporting from on ground I've heard from reporters who say, well, contrary to earlier, people are saying we are now feeling lesser fear and we may be able to vote accordingly, but maybe they're not speaking out who they voted for.
Yeah, look, I mean, Mr. Nigam agrees that there may be fear, but I think what neither of us know is who are they most scared of. I don't know whether they're scared of one party or the other. But yes, the bottom line is that there is always a chance that some of the findings of the exit poll may not exactly turn up the way it's being projected. That's why I believe that once we have a larger pool of the polls that are being done today, we'll probably have a better idea. But having said that, there was no question there is going to be a tight contest. I think everybody agrees there is going to be a very tight contest. And remember, in tight contests, even a 1% or sometimes even less than 1% vote share gap can be very decisive. And they're frankly nightmare to project. So it's a bit tough. My bigger concern, Tanvi, which is this, that irrespective of this, whether Mr. Nigam's view that it may be reverse of this or whether see voters' assessment that it will be TMC. My biggest problem is that the next government that is going to come to power is going to be, as both Nilanjan and Javed said, a fractious government, and this government has to deal with a very serious COVID problem. You cannot have political fights and opposition and the ruling party bitterly fighting and horse trading and doing various other things, or trying to save its MLAs in the middle of what possibly is the biggest challenge in front of the next government, whoever it is.
Well, we know that in the first wave, when it was during Mamata Banerjee's government's time, information and data specifically was kind of eclipsed. We had to deal with and look into whatever data, little bit of data was coming through from West Bengal. This time around also the situation is no better in terms of what the true ground situation is. But it is pretty bad. So whichever is the next government has its task cut out for the next couple of months. Mr. Ansari, you wanted to make a point. Go ahead, please.
Well, the point that I meant to make, and from sitting here, is that one significant outcome, and if these numbers are correct, is the spectacular decline of the left.
Yes.
It's just 10 years ago, they were the ruling party in Bengal. And now they've been reduced to 14 or at best 25. I mean, they'll be struggling to get into double digits if these numbers are correct. So, I mean, as a political scientist, as somebody who watches and who studies these things, it may be worth studying as to, such a rapid and spectacular decline. Why has this come about? And all of a sudden, it used to be said that, after Cuba, the second place, the other place where communism was alive and kicking was West Bengal. And today, they are on the periphery. They are fighting a battle for survival in Bengal. Why has this come about? This is something for left and for everybody else to think and ponder about. This spectacular decline, what does it owe itself to?
Absolutely. Honestly, I don't know. Every time we had these conversations, there was much exuberance, but that perhaps something that the spokesperson had to show on our debates, Vinay. But this party has not been able to get its act back together as far as Bengal is concerned.
Look, I mean, insofar as the left is concerned, Javed is right. I think probably the only explanation is that TMC has positioned itself as the real left in some ways. I mean, 2011 onwards, they've been positioning themselves as the left. And in that sense, that space has just gone to them. Even in the cadre has gone to them.
The cadre and the cut mafia. All of it.
And the cut mafia.
Yeah.
So in the culturally, I mean, I know personally, a lot of family members who stay in Bengal, I can tell you that when the left was in power, the same people still come and collect money. I mean, then they were collecting on behalf of left, and now they're coming and collecting on behalf of another party. So that hasn't changed at all. I mean, that's exactly the same which was there earlier. So in that sense, that is possibly one explanation. I think in terms of the Congress, they probably knew that they have very little stake. In fact, if you notice the way the campaigns was done, Rahul Gandhi probably didn't even go there, because they realized that this is a state where they have really no stake, and there is a bigger prestige battle on in Kerala, which is now the home state of Rahul Gandhi, which is where they need to make a mark, because if they end up doing badly there, it's going to really create bigger problems for them.
Congress clearly knew what their priorities were. They didn't even send Rahul Gandhi to West Bengal, and at some point he also made a virtue out of it, saying, I'm suspending all my rallies in Bengal because of the state of affairs. He never went there to campaign because obviously they knew it's not going to get anything for them at all. So they picked and chose their battles. Their battle was Kerala, and we'll very shortly find out what the projections have to show, whether it worked or not, or Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan is going to return and create a history of a kind in the state of Kerala. We're going to take a very short break. I request everybody to stay on. On the other side, numbers being lined up for Bengal's neighbor, the state of Assam. Stay with me.